Welcome to Startup to Success with Maria. My guest today is Catherine Bailey, former President, Chief Operating Officer of Rea.deeming Beauty. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
I am so thrilled to introduce you to my listeners today because I feel like you've been not just a mentor for me in terms of, strategizing for Roma Leaf, but you've just been such an inspiration as a woman in business and sort of juggling this whole transition of online and offline, which I find a lot of women my age deal with. They're so used to certain ways of coping with things. And I feel like the pandemic really drove us all to be online and be able to connect this way. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because if it wasn't for Zoom, you and I would have never met. So I feel super blessed for in a sense that the pandemic sort of happened, because I would never be able to connect with you and have your mentorship throughout the past year for Roma Leaf. And then to be able to share your expertise and have you on this interview to share with more people in Los Angeles who are going to be tuning in and listening on the show. So thank you for joining us. And I would love to start off by, as you know, this is an entrepreneurship show, and we love learning about your journey. Like, I would love to learn about your journey. How did you venture out and start your sort of the beauty, I guess, in the beauty industry? How did you get into the beauty industry?
Well, actually, it was quite by accident. It was through a friend who had suggested that I interview for this company coming into the Valley, or Lehigh Valley, and they happened to be a cosmetic applicator manufacturer. They actually wove their velour. They actually made powder puffs, and they were coming to the Lehigh Valley out of New York. This was back in the late 80s. So that's how long I've been in the cosmetic industry. As it turned out, it worked out beautifully. I worked for both of the owners of the business and started out as their assistant and worked my way up to eventually I started their marketing department. I headed their product development department. And that's what got me introduced to Rianne Silva, the founder of Rea.deeming Beauty, the home of BeautyBlender, through my product development experience. And she and I hooked up and we worked together, and I helped her develop the product that she created. And she started the business and asked me to run it for her. And the rest is history. And it was a great, great experience.
And in a sense, I think you've been an entrepreneurial, right? Like, it wasn't your business, but you led the business, you ran it. So
exactly. Rianne is a Hollywood makeup artist and had been for many years. So she was located out in Los Angeles. I was in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And when she asked if I would run the company, we eventually moved the company to my area for a lot of reasons, but one of which was she wanted me to run the company. So it started with me and one other person in my third bedroom in my condo. And I had a third party supplier helping us put the product together and ship for us. That lasted about 2 years. And then we moved into our first location. And then there were 4 of us. So it started out very small. And when you start that way, you do everything and you learn everything, which I think is a great advantage of running a business, owning a business, starting a business. It's kind of like, that old adage, you started in the mailroom and worked your way up. I made product, I labeled product. I became a tremendous talented UPS operator and getting the packages out. So we did the four of us did a little bit of everything. And as we grew, of course, I brought more and more staff on, and we became an actual thriving company. And so today, the company now is over 100 strong, and we're distributed throughout the world.
That's amazing. That's so inspiring. And I love hearing that, because I do find myself doing a lot of different things, shipping, whatever it takes to push Romilly forward. And at times I get frustrated, but then I know it's important. It's important for two reasons. Number one, it helps me figure out what's the estimated time that it takes to do a certain task, so that when I do end up hiring people, I know what it takes to do things. And if they say, oh, it took me 3-4 hours, I'm like, really? Okay, it took me like an hour. Why would it take you 3 hours? So then I will either train them properly or just look into how to optimize that, because I do find, especially now with remote working, it's really hard to manage cost across different freelancers and different people who are working on projects. It can sometimes get out of control with the number of hours they're putting into something, you know.
Well, and I think it gives your future employees and your current employees a big advantage if you understand what they're going through. Yes, you know how to do it, so you can be sure that they're doing it correctly. But it's great support for them to know that you've actually experienced it. And it for me, as the company grew and we became department after department and so forth, it also always kept me in touch with bottoms up, top down, bottoms up, the whole thing. And I always said to everyone is as important in this company as anybody else, from the guy who sweeps the floor, to the CEO. Everybody plays a role and has an important role. And by doing it and starting small and growing that way, you certainly understand that.
Yeah. I would love to learn, when you started hiring, how did you prioritize what positions to focus on? And I know things might have been a little bit different back then versus now, because obviously social media plays such a huge role in sales and marketing, and everybody's prioritizing social media. But I would love to just understand what you've done.
Well, it's interesting you say that. When we moved into our first location, it was 2013. Obviously, I brought someone on to help in the warehouse. That was, I started hiring as need created itself. First of all, to have someone oversee the warehouse, the deliveries, the shipments, and so forth, and actually do them. So he was a jack of all trades, but he was our strong arm, if you will. So that was out of need. And then as the business again began to grow, I needed someone to handle the sales orders and process those. But the next thing we did, and this was even back in 2013, I hired a freelance website designer and developer for e-commerce back then. And also, to get our name out on the internet type thing. So it wasn't social media as we know it today, but yet it was still that internet connection that was very important. But as the company grew, you dealt with the biggest need. Where was the biggest need? And in the beginning, the first few years, it was mostly functionality in terms of, processing and getting the orders ready and doing the packaging and getting things put together. I did most of, the ordering. So we didn't have a purchasing person. I did practically, I did the marketing. Rianne is the creative, and still today is the creative genius behind design and that type of thing. So we collaborated with that. And eventually, you know, it was 2017, we hired a sales director. Up until then, I had taken care of all of the sales. So, you know, sales director, and then once we got the sales director, we needed a marketing person, and it just kind of snowballed.
You sort of you're leading on to my next question, which is sales. And it's something that I personally struggle with myself when it comes to Roma Leaf, because we have the opportunity of the wholesale end of our business as well as the direct to consumer, online and offline, now that we have the retail store. And it's just been really, it's not challenging, but it is overwhelming sometimes when I'm trying to put the 3 different hats to really understand the end user and how and what I should optimize or improve or reduce or add on and whatever. And I'll give you an example. I had a meeting a few weeks ago with a couple of doctors who want to start carrying our products in their offices. And I felt like the things they were asking, the products and their needs were so different from the chiropractor offices that are purchasing our products, and then the pharmacies. And then now we're dabbling into the fashion industry, where we want to get into the retail space and start the hotel space and so on. And it's just sometimes so overwhelming to figure out what to create for each vertical. What's your suggestion to overcome that and get a little bit more organized and streamlined?
Well, I think you have to pick your places and prioritize where you want to build first. I've seen over the years that there are many different types of salespeople. Those that go out and get business, those that go out and once the business is gotten, maintain it, grow it, and build those relationships. So, you know, you're very right in the fact that every channel is going to need something just a little bit different. It's hard to be all things to everybody. And I think, you know, it's wise to get a center and then grow from there. And this is the base. This is where we start. And then you, doctor, require this, and you, fashion industry, require XYZ. So it's building the base and then compartmentalizing each of those different channels. Like we had, you know, in retail, you have the small businesses, the boutiques, and there are certain sales types that work well with those smaller customers. Then there's the big box guys, the Sephoras, the Ultas, that takes a little bit different strategy than, and then there's international, and knowing that, you know, so you've got segments, you're selling the same product, but you're selling it to different segments. So
that's great advice, and building the base and then compartmentalizing from that moment on. I love that. But when it comes to, I think my challenge has been, you know, if it was all in the beauty industry, for example, I feel like it would be little tweaks in terms of whether it's the marketing assets that I'm creating, or if it's the order sheet or the PO or like price sheet or whatever. I feel like every single thing, like as simple as a price sheet, is so different. People are expecting different in different ways for each industry. And I'll give you an example. Like for example, when we made our price sheet for our pharmacy clients, customers, they required these detailed documents with like all these lab certificates and stuff, which I understand. Obviously, it's a pharmacy. They're a little bit more by the book and they have to have access to the lab certificates. So we ended up doing that. And then when I repurposed that same price sheet for my rep who was attending a show, a Cala show, which is more catered towards the fashion industry, the smaller retail boutiques, she was like, oh, all this information is too much. This is going to overwhelm my clients. Let's get rid of half the stuff and simplify it. So it was just literally those little nuances that I felt like, it's not that complicated. I just need to figure out how each industry works and what type of documents they're used to viewing so that I'm catering to them properly, not overwhelming them.
As far as the price sheet is concerned, that should be standard. And then your added documents, depending upon, you've got your medical industry documents, you have your boutique fashion industry requirements, and they normally don't need as much information. But I would think the pharmacies and the doctors and so forth, they would need the same type of medical backup and information. So that could be a separate fact sheet or information sheet.
Got it.
But just have one price sheet.
Okay.
Your discount levels are different and so forth, but your base price list wouldn't be based, on the industry. It would be based on your costs and your MSRP.
And that's one thing we've kept consistent. We've kept our prices the same across all verticals, all channels. It's just the type of information we were sharing with them was slightly different, which I love the idea of keeping it one because it does get confusing. I don't want to have 5 different versions of our price sheet. In terms of discount levels, you brought up a good point. I'm curious to know, when I'm thinking about discounting, what's a good way to, start someone out? Is it smart to give them a discount initially when they're a wholesale buyer, let's say a small retail boutiques? Or do we not want a discount yet? So that I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I think you set a wholesale price, and then each individual entity, like your big box or your larger stores, will want more than the smaller boutiques will get because of quantity. The big box is more than likely going to buy a higher quantity. You can also base it on quantity buy, up to a certain amount, it's X and then it becomes Y, or, that type of thing. But, you always want to leave yourself that room to be able to discount for special events, special occasions, or that type of thing. When we first started out, the price was the price. That was it. And then you would negotiate depending upon the size of the retailer and so forth. So you set your MSRP, your retail prices. Let's say it sells for $20. Let's just use that as an example. And then you go from there, depending upon the size and the volume as to how you wholesale it.
And speaking of price, now I know you guys sold it online and at the same time sold it wholesale to retailers. The problem that I come across a lot is, for example, with my latest meeting with the doctor's offices, they said, well, we want to make sure that our price is lower than the online price because we don't want our patients sitting in the room and looking at your banner and then going online and placing the order because the price is different. Like so that's my other question. How did you have any strategies to overcome this, or was the MSRP the same across everywhere and you just basically said this is what it should be everywhere?
Well, that's what we did. A product sold for $20 online, it sold for $20 in a small boutique, and it sold for $20 at Sephora. So, that didn't change. It isn't so much the price. Now, of course, you can always say that there's the advantage of them being able to take it home with them and not having to, wait for it to be shipped. Or if there's delivery charges, they're saving that. But that, that's up to the actual seller, the doctor, if they want to do something special for their customers. They're going to buy it from you for whatever price you set. And remember, as much as we want our retail price to be maintained across the board, it is a suggested retail. So it can be played with, but that's up to the seller. On the other hand, one has to guard against sellers that will undersell you.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a tricky dance. It isn't an easy solution. But you have, those places need to be able to give their patients something that's special, but that doesn't necessarily mean a special price. It could be, I don't know, samples, or it could be whatever.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And in terms of promotions, did you guys do a lot of different promotions with your retail partners? And how often, if so?
In the beginning, we didn't do too many. We did, obviously, we did holiday specials, that type of thing. And we would offer specials. Many times our retailers would come to us saying we're having a grand opening for another store. We'd like to have something special to offer our customers to celebrate that. Or Pioneer Day is happening and we want to do something for that. So many times the customer would come and say, what can we do as a promotion for this particular event? As we grew and we became more, if you will, sophisticated and had a full-blown marketing department, we created a whole lot of different kinds of specials throughout the year, based on whether it was the time of the year, events going on during the year. We did special editions, sometimes just special edition packaging, as opposed to changing the product itself. So it's a combination.
I like the special edition packaging because it's less discounts, but it's different to the consumer's eye. Speaking of marketing, I'm obsessed with marketing. I own a marketing agency, and it's been really interesting to try to implement some of the strategies and the tactics that I'm used to doing for my clients, and then trying to really bootstrap it, cut the cost, and do it for Roma Leaf, because it's still a startup. I can't spend $30,000 for Roma Leaf right now the way I'm spending it for my clients. They're more established. A lot of them got funded millions of dollars, so it's a whole different situation. But when it comes to marketing, I would love to know what worked for you, and how did you, was there a technique, a strategy you've used to really optimize in terms of like reviewing and then cutting and optimizing, reallocating budgets? What did you have a system in place, some kind of a secret in terms of marketing?
No, a lot of it was done by the seat of our pants, to be honest with you. I mean, in the beginning, there was so little to do much with that it really became our biggest expense, and our largest marketing strategy was really, in the beginning, I think we gave away more product than we sold. And we had the type of product that you had to try it to believe it. I mean, we entered an industry that never had a product like ours before. And we were charging an exorbitant price for it. And so it had to be proven. Proof was in the pudding. And the only way to do that was to try it. So if you will, our marketing budget, whatever we had, was in the form of samples, and try it, you'll like it. I know it's kind of maybe old-fashioned or whatever, but we couldn't do both. So the best thing we could do was say, you have to try this. This is revolutionary. This is, and it worked. It worked.
It's actually a strategy I'm using right now. I'll be honest with you, because similar to your product, I feel like CBD is so new to so many people, and a lot of them are hesitant. They question it, and they don't really understand the difference between marijuana and CBD. So we have to not only educate them, but also give them a sample for them to try, because a lot of people assume that they're just gonna feel the psychoactive effect and get high. And like, no, you're not gonna get any of that. It's just like a vitamin supplement that balances you, calms you, but that's all it does. It's not going to make you drowsy and feeling weird or anything. And we've been giving out a lot of samples, but go ahead. Sorry.
I have a good point, and I don't want to lose it. Educate. Educate. Everybody needs to educate their customers on their product, whether it's a product or it's a service. It needs education. The public needs to understand all the nuances of your product. So education is a very important part of marketing.
And I know we've talked about this initially when we met, that education should be a huge part of our strategy for Roma Leaf specifically, because CBD is still somewhat new, and yes, it's growing really rapidly, but there's just so much out there, and people don't know what to trust, who to trust, and all of that. And I think my biggest challenge was I wanted to educate, but then I felt like, who should be educating on our company's behalf? And then I remember you and I had this conversation where I was like, okay, I think I need to be the one educating, and as the face of the company, build that trust with customers. And we started doing that through the workshops, which now we're transitioning into online, so that we have the ability to take on more people. Because of COVID, we were limited to the number of people, the number of guests that could attend the workshop. And so now we've decided to take it online. But besides doing the webinars online, we're planning to do educational short little videos to repurpose on different social media platforms. And a lot of it is going to be taken from questions that people are Googling, and we're going to come up with the answers and create these short little videos answering those questions, and with the hopes that if they're searching on YouTube or anywhere else, our answers will pop up. But I was wondering if there's any other way that you would suggest that we educate other than online webinars and social media, because I love mixing both traditional, new ways, old ways. I just love taking things that have worked previously and reinventing them and sort of tweaking them. And if you have any ideas, I could definitely use it.
Well, in today's day and age, everything that I'm hearing and learning is that most people learn what they want to know online. It's almost a standing joke in our family that if somebody says, gee, I wonder when this was discovered. And then inevitably somebody says, well, Google it. Gee, the other day, I had to fix something around the house. So what did I do? I went to YouTube and figured out how to fix it watching a YouTube video. So I don't, obviously the written material that's enclosed with your product, that's still important. It's still a piece, but most people don't read those anymore. I mean, some will, but it's Google it, YouTube it. That's the way of the day today. I mean, and I think it's, there really isn't anything that you can't ask that you can't get an answer to. I mean, it amazes me when, you put in some weird question and there it is. I mean, they have an answer. So I don't know, Maria. I don't think there's at this point what the new next thing is. I have no idea, but right now it's social media, online, YouTube, Google, webinars, and everyone talks about the COVID fatigue on, with Zoom and looking at the computer and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's still the fastest, best way to reach the most people. And your point, with us meeting, with the mentoring that I do with SCORE, I've got clients all over the country, and that's more feasible now because so much is done with Google Meet, Zoom, which wasn't the norm before.
Right.
So it opens up a whole new world.
I agree. And for me, Zoom has been something that I've been using since 2013, actually, because of most of our clients, they're very techie and they don't believe in driving for an hour to meet someone in person. Although I do love the in-person meetings, but I think
well, especially in Los Angeles. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah,
I love it, but
outrageous. It's ridiculous to get to Santa Monica, which is literally 20 minutes away. It generally will take us about an hour and a half. Yeah, definitely not worth it. So for me, the transition there was no transition. I was used to using Zoom, but it did give me the ability to connect with people like you that, you're like thousands of miles away from me, but we're able to sit in front of each other and have our coffee and chat, and
right.
so I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful for a lot of things that I guess the pandemic caused in a way to help the society get a little bit more technologically advanced, which is helping us in terms of marketers, from a marketing perspective to reach them differently. But then it's also very noisy. That's the other thing, when it comes to marketing now, it's so noisy because everyone's online, everyone's trying to get attention. And so it's been, I know education has been part of my primary strategies for me to get the word out about Roma Leaf, but I'm always trying to get creative as to how do I get my product out there for people to know more about it, and we've been featured in many different magazines, and our latest feature on Fox 11 was great. It was a coverage for almost 3 minutes, which was great, but I'm always looking for that one thing that could really differentiate us in terms of, the competitors, because the competitors are educating too. And it's just been, and we've talked about this before, where, my biggest passion is encouraging other women, especially, to become entrepreneurs. I think as we become mothers and not just mothers, I think it's just in general, as we get older, we realize how valuable time is, and you want to have a little bit of flexibility in your work. You don't want to go to 9 to 5 and get stuck there. And I'm not saying entrepreneurship is easy. I work 7 days a week, and I put in a lot of hours, but I can stop my work anytime and go walk with my daughter if I like. And I love that freedom. So I would love to get your thoughts on, in terms of, all the listeners out there who are interested in taking that leap, but they're scared. What would you recommend for them? How would you help them solidify if that's the right decision for them to make, and especially if they're entering the beauty industry at this time?
Well, I think, I think anyone who is looking to start a business, and, the beauty industry is extremely competitive, and it's full of, a plethora of products, but all industries are competitive and crowded and busy. So, but I think, there's the why. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to become an entrepreneur? Why do you want to start your business? Is it a personal why, or is it a market need why? Is it something, as in your case, you created something out of your own need and then decided to share it with the rest of the world? And so you really need to dig down and say, why am I doing this? And know that, as you said, it's a tremendous commitment, but it comes with a lot of rewards. But you really need to know why, and where that passion is going to take you. And is this the path you want to take? You also want, to really, okay, yes, I want to do this because I feel there's a need for this. Obviously, then you need to do your homework, as you do your market research. Who else is out there? Who would I be competing against? Can I do this? Can I compete against these people? And what do I think it'll take? What's going to make me stand out? To your point, how are you going to get out of that noisy environment of what everybody else is saying? That's that next step. And we create those next steps because of a need. So, why am I doing this? This is what it's going to take to do this. Who is going to be my competitor? Who will be my customers? Who will I serve? How will I, be able to make this a success? And then I think you need to figure out what success will look like to you.
Exactly.
There's a lot of different successes out there. Obviously, there's the monetary success, but then there's also the self-satisfaction aspect of it.
I love
and what your goals are.
I love that you brought success, because I think having your metrics for success is important, and solidifying that, because I know with my previous startup, with the shoe company that I had back in 2012, for me, success was to get investors and grow the company. But then when I came to that point and I had the investors and I was literally a day away from signing that deal, I realized that that's not success for me. Success for me is to be around my daughters while I'm working, not sign a deal that's going to move me to China literally 2 weeks out of a quarter, each quarter, right? And so I think, to your point, thinking about success, what does success mean to you? And is it going to keep you happy? Because sometimes we think, oh yes, I'll get an investor and I'll be so happy because I won't have to worry about the financial aspects of running my business. But then what is it going to take on that investor? Is it going to take a lot of traveling? Are you going to be able to juggle your family? And so is that going to still make you happy? And when I realized that taking on the investors, but not being present for the kids and not being the mother that I wanted to be, wasn't the ideal success story that I wanted to have.
I think, again, what I have found in my role as a mentor is, it's a process. And many times with clients, where I start with them, the journey, it's an up and down type of journey. And in many cases where we start, or the goal at when we start winds up being different than the goal sometimes 3, 6, 8 months later. It's not an overnight process. It needs to take the time to develop all of those thoughts and needs and what it's going to take. It's, working for someone else, 9 to 5, you leave, you're done. When you own your own business, as you know, you're never done.
Yeah.
However, it has its perks because you can take that walk, or you can sit down and have cookies and milk with the kids when they come home from school, or take the dog for whatever. So it gives you that, but there's a price for everything.
Yeah, I love
the
that.
Price for everything.
I love that, and I think knowing that plans may change and be flexible and be able to pivot quickly and review and optimize is very important. I tend to do that every quarter. I tend to review my plans and not only to cross off what I've achieved just to keep myself motivated, but also to really reevaluate things and maybe remove things that I might now realize that due to the climate change, whatever changes that are occurring in real life, this idea might not work. And so I don't have to necessarily stick with that marketing plan that I've created a year ago. Like I constantly review and then optimize and remove or add stuff on. And I feel like
I think no. I think quality assessments on a quarterly basis, 6-month basis is very important for lifestyles, for family life, for personal things, for businesses, for goals, because things do change and we need to adapt. Sometimes what we thought would work in the beginning isn't working now. And I mean, look at all the adapting people did when all of a sudden everything was shut down.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy, but most people found a way to adapt and in some cases thrive.
Yeah.
So, that quarterly assessment or however often you do it, I think is important in any walk of life.
Thank you, Catherine, so much for today, for your time. I feel like there's so much more I can learn from you and ask you. And we're probably gonna have you back on again because I want to dive into the beauty industry so much more, but we are running out of time, so I do have to wrap up our interview. But before I do, if people wanted to get a hold of you, get in touch with you, how would they find you? I'll have everything in the show notes, but if you want to mention it, that would be awesome.
Oh, that's great. Well, right now, my best contact is through Lehigh Valley Score.org. And it's where I spend most of my time now, mentoring and hopefully bringing about a whole new generation of new entrepreneurs, and it's been great. So yeah, Lehigh Valley Score.org. And I thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure knowing you and working with you.
Thank you.
And I just wish everyone out there their success as they see it and they grow it.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much for your time.